Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily for January 21st, 2025. Coming up, the Wolves lose another close game to the Grizzlies, and I think they need to make a change. We've got Jay King live after the Boston Celtics play the Warriors on the road, and we take a look at the Pistons, who are looking great in 2025. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, S.
Morning.
Ooh, nice little holiday weekend. I'm feeling refreshed, had all this extra time off. We had a lot of really good basketball over the weekend, and that doesn't even include the unrivaled stuff from Friday and Saturday. Did you have a chance to watch any of it?
Yeah, a little bit. To be honest with you, I spent some time off, good. Enjoying myself. But yes, I saw the highlights. It looked cool. Very interesting league that they got starting up. So, hey, why not? Some off-season hoops for the W? Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, it's fun. It's not like what we're used to when we think about basketball, but it is interesting. It's fast-paced. We'll see if 3-on-3 full court is something that's going to stick around.
Exactly.
They'll probably tweak this a little bit, but the first weekend I thought, it was cool. And it was something new and different with basketball. So, not new and different. The Wolves lost again in a pretty similar way to the Grizzlies for the second time in a week. 108-106, just another close game. And look, as right now, I don't think there's any question that the Wolves are not the team that we expected them to be at this stage of the season. The Grizzlies are just a better basketball team right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But this game in particular, it showed that they did not have Donte DiVincenzo. He's going to be out. We got that news right before the game. He's going to be out indefinitely with a left big toe injury. And he's going around looking for outside options and opinions, I guess, which does not sound great. I'm assuming he's going to miss a bunch of time. And that stinks because they just made the big lineup change. And, his shooting was such a needed addition to the starting lineup. I don't know what the plan is going forward without DiVincenzo.
Yeah, look, there's no question that this sucks for the Wolves because, again, the three-point shooting was massive in that starting lineup. It felt like that starting lineup change was almost inevitable, putting Mike Conley on the bench because he just hadn't aged well and was really, really regressing this season. So incorporating Donte into that starting lineup hopefully would have sparked a change for this Wolves season, which has not gone the way we expected it to. But this injury is a massive blow. Sort of glass half full approach to this thing, though, is that Rob Dillingham, their rookie, is going to officially get more minutes, will likely be in the rotation, and they need him to be a hit, right? Unequivocally, they need him to be a hit. And so I thought he was great tonight. Had like 15 points in 15 minutes, punched in, was an effective scorer, played off of the guys well, had that spark in that fourth quarter that really ignited them as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think giving more opportunities to the young guys in a season that's not going the way you'd expect it to is probably a good use of resources because it's like, hey, if we're not going back to the Western Conference Finals, why not try to develop the guy we expect to be the long-term backcourt partner for Ant? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Find out how close he is to being an actual Mike Conley replacement, which is really what they're hoping for with him. Totally. I'll tell you the other person that needs more minutes and needs more opportunities. And it's funny to say this because we say his name all the time. Naz Reid had 29 off the bench. This is another game where, you just see these guys playing with Naz. He's 5 of 10 from 3, right? He's gets up 10 threes in the game.
Yeah.
This is what they need. They need another volume 3-point shooter. And every single time I see him out there with the starters in place of Julius Randle, not only is he doing stuff, he's more active on defense, but he just fits much better. It's time, right?
It's time. And I know the other side of this equation is the Julius Randle problem. And I think this was the game that, the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will, when it comes to Julius Randle, who looked really lethargic out there, had 5 points in 33 minutes, was a -9 and a 2-point loss, was just not a guy that you could rely upon. And on the other side, coming off of the bench, you have Naz Reid, who, again, like you mentioned, bringing energy, shot making, brought them back into the game in the first quarter, hit huge shots in that fourth quarter to ignite them. And he fits so much better in that starting lineup, especially when McDaniels, non-shooter, Gobert, non-shooter. And so when you have Randle incorporated with those guys, the slower decision-making is not working. And so I think it's not only a time for a lineup change. I think with the deadline coming up in the next couple weeks, they should find a new home for Julius Randle, who has a player option next season, that's a tough contract to move. Let's be real, because that's the issue there when it comes to trying to trade Randle at his low point. But I don't know. It just feels like this might be an addition via subtraction type of thing for them, where they could actually become better if they were to move off of Randle and get anything in return that could maybe fill out their rotation. I don't know. This game and the Warriors game where he walked off the court, didn't talk to the media, that all adds up, right? The vibes are off on top of the on-court fit not working. So it's time for a change, man. I've held out for this long, but I have to say it now. It's time for a change.
When the argument that a guy remain a starter is that he wouldn't be happy coming off the bench, I feel like, and again, it messes with my basketball sensibilities to just think you've got a better player who's a better fit, who you can't start because of a personality conflict. I think I'm with you. I think that clearly is the way this was going to go. I wonder if one of these tanking teams, like the Wizards or
take him on,
the Nets or somebody might be willing to take him. And you have to play the guy. But if everyone around is so bad, it's not like Julius Randle is going to be some sort of a rising tide for the Washington Wizards, right? Like he ain't going to win him any games.
What about and I don't know exactly the numbers here contract wise and how it would work, but like Malcolm Brogdon, Jonas Valanciunas, right?
There you go.
Those guys would fit into the Wolves rotation. You get a backup big, you get, some ball handling responsibilities in Brogdon. I just something like that, right? For the Wizards, you bought that out. I know Sam Vecini mentioned this on Twitter today, but like a Jordan Poole, Julius Randle swap, which would be fascinating for both teams. Yeah. I don't know. There has to be something out there that might work as a Randle swap, because right now, man, it just makes sense to start playing Naz Reid more. And it's crazy because he played 32 minutes tonight. He's still, how many more minutes?
He's still not playing enough. I mean, this is the thing. He's out there in these crunch time situations, and they just look better when Naz Reid is on the court. So find a way to get him out there for an extra 5 minutes a night, but in particular with the starters. Look, we got to talk about the Pistons. Yeah. The Pistons are having a great 2025, which somehow, by the way, we're already 3 weeks into 2025, which I don't even understand. But the Pistons pick up another big win. They've been beating some decent teams. They beat the Rockets, who, they've been having an interesting couple weeks, but 107-96, they pick up the win. They do it pretty handily. And I'm going to start with Cade because, we have to start there. He had an amazing third quarter, put up 19 points. But overall, 32 points in the game. He had 9 rebounds, 7 assists. Now, he had 10 turnovers, right?
That's actually something I want to bring up here.
He's throwing the ball all over the place, but he's still effective. When you consider how much he's scoring, how much he's creating for other people. We've been making the statement that he's an all-star, and we've now pretty much said, all right, this guy's going to be all NBA. He might be climbing up the list for a lot of people in other awards also. I think his defense is starting to get noticed a lot more now that, he's got a team around him that plays good defense. So what have you been seeing out of the Pistons here lately that you like, and especially Cade?
Yeah, first of all, the defense has been great over the last couple weeks. That's what's really ignited things. And then you have an offensive star in Cade who is just taking over in certain areas. The offense is clear. The scoring is there. He just looks more comfortable getting to his spots. And a lot of that is because of the pull-up shooting. He is a top 10 three-point pull-up shooter this season. So he's up there with some of the best three-point shooters in the league. I think he's shooting like 35, 36% on pull-ups, which is good percentages on pretty decent volume, right? So that's opened up the rest of his game. He can get downhill more. He can settle into his mid-range shots more often. The turnovers are an issue. And I think that goes to show you how much the Pistons miss Jaden Ivey as a secondary ball handler, and why they might try to look at the deadline as a way to improve this team and incorporate and add another ball handler, because there's just so much pressure on Cade to be the be all and end all offensively. Like, they fall off a cliff on the offensive end when he's off the floor. Got to get a secondary ball handler in there, alleviate some of the pressure as a decision maker for him. Because the offensive structure for the Pistons right now is Cade sees ton of attention. They slip it to Duren or Stewart in the short roll area. And then there's shooters all around. Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, whoever, Tim Hardaway Jr. That's their structure, right? But it's a lot of pressure on Cade to make the decisions every single time. And that's why you get 10 turnover nights like you did today.
Yeah, I mean, look, we keep bringing up Bradley Beal as an option for this team potentially. If any of these guys wind up being moved from Chicago, I mean, if Zach LaVine was there playing next to Cade, or Lonzo really would be a great
Lonzo
fit
would
there
be great
when you think about him as a connector. So either way, I mean, they are very good. 8-3 so far in 2025, top 5 defense, which is, again, this is one of the best stories in the NBA this season. Also, great story. We got a Sar versus a men. We got the Thompson twins against each other, and I mean, again, these two guys. I called one of them a Leatherman, not a Swiss Army knife. You know, I mean, it's just what they're able to do on the court. I mean, Amen Thompson just is able to fill the stat sheet in so many interesting ways. I mean, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and you know, Asar does it in a different way with the Pistons. What did you think about those two guys in this matchup?
Yeah, you're right. They both have the same level of athleticism, but they use it in very different ways. And so Asar is more of a screener, diver to the basket. Amen does that too. You know, he can kind of be that roller for you in the dunker spot, kind of attacking the basket in transition. They use that similarly, but the way that their respective teams use them is different. You know, you mentioned like the Josh Hart. He could be like a super Josh Hart. Asar could. Amen is like this, I don't know, this like mutated version of Ben Simmons who could just kind of like all NBA version of Ben Simmons. You know what I mean? Just roll to the basket, use that athleticism, make plays in the open court. I guess one of the things I have a question for, maybe this is a good problem to have for the Rockets. Like when Jabari Smith Jr. comes back, what happens to Amen Thompson, who has solidified himself as a starter? Like, I don't think you can take Amen and put him on the bench anymore, knowing what he's been able to provide to that starting lineup. I guess that comes with its own offensive concerns. You know, Jalen Green and Şengün, they struggled tonight offensively. But overall, like those two, both Asar and Amen, they have so much athleticism and so much like just innate talent that they're kind of like putty in the sense that they could be molded in any way they want to. It just depends on their on-court context and how they're supposed to be, you know, developed, quote unquote, you know?
It's not something we think about with non-shooters all that often, but I would say that these guys both have really good feel of the game.
Yeah, totally.
If that makes, and we normally think about that with a guy who kind of does everything and really like shooters, you know, you put the ball in the basket a lot. You say you have a good feel for a game, but these guys, they just pick their spots as cutters. And I mean, Amen Thompson's putting on a masterclass as far as a wing working the baseline and the corner as a non-shooter. If this guy ever sticks shots, I mean,
both defensive stoppers too, right? Like both of these guys lock into it. It's funny you talk about the feel because people usually talk about feel like you mentioned, like the feel of the offensive process and shooting, but they have everything else. And I think that's why they succeed feel wise. It's like they understand the game at a really, really high level.
Yeah. A little bit of news came out over the weekend. We got our first entrant into this year's dunk contest, Stephen Castle from the San Antonio Spurs, which, by the way, he's caught a few bodies this year.
Oh, and,
you know, that guy can get up. But my question for you, S, does anybody care about the dunk contest? I mean, you know, we've had this argument for years where people are like, oh, they should just get professional dunkers, which I'm against. But if the stars don't want to do it, I mean, and I've now been doing this for long enough that I've had this conversation with, I don't know, 12 or 15 people. As if the stars don't want to do it, is it a thing that people are going to care about?
Yeah, I think the stars are too afraid to get embarrassed. You know, like there is a legitimate argument for that. You could think about like Jaylen Brown's dunk contest and what happened with the left hand thing and how he, for what it's worth, it worked out for him. But I just feel like there's this level of anxiety of like, you don't want to commit to something and completely botch it. And if you're not that elite high level talent, they try to go for those younger guys to be in the dunk contest. That's why you see Steph Castle. I would love, we just talked about the Thompson twins, get both of them in there because they would be incredible. And that
get the Thompson twins to play music while the Thompson twins are in the dunk contest.
Very nice. There you go.
I'm with you. And the thing is, I like that Stephen Castle's in it. I mean, look, young players especially, this is a good opportunity.
Totally.
But man, I don't understand why couldn't we get Ja versus Zion at any point?
Or Ants, right? Yeah.
I mean, LeBron, why not be in this year's dunk contest?
As 40-year-old LeBron, that would be incredible.
It would be, I mean, you're telling me he didn't have a couple 50s in his bag? I mean, I think
he definitely does.
Yeah. So I just would like to see, maybe some of the guys who are higher stakeholders in the NBA maybe take part in some of the fun stuff for fans.
Yeah.
Guys.
I will say, though, I think like the 3-point contest has taken over as the main event. It's been like that for a while. And I don't know. You need a star, to your point, to revitalize that dunk contest.
Yeah. Guys, stick around after the break. We got Jay King. We're going to catch up on the Celtics. We're going to figure out if he still feels like they're the favorites to come out of the East. We had a day full of games yesterday for MLK Day. It's always fun to, wake up and the first game is like 9 a.m. on the West Coast. We got Jay King also on West Coast time finally, so I was able to catch up with Jay. What's up, buddy? You saw the Warriors up close and personal, and Boston laid the smackdown on them. I want to start with the Warriors. I know you cover the Celtics, but you're one of the guys that watches every single team. Are the Warriors awful right now, or is this just a blip, man? Because they cannot put 2 wins together in a row.
I was saying to somebody during the game, it's just so weird to see the Warriors suck.
Right.
Like, it's so weird to see them lifeless. It's so weird to see their defense not flying around. It's so weird to see, like, obviously when Steph comes out, when Draymond's not in the lineup, it's going to get ugly. But just seeing how bad it can get with the Schroeder, Buddy Hield lineups, it's like there's nothing they can do to score. And like that first half, Steph Curry was a +2. They go into halftime, they're down 54-39. And it was entirely what happened in the 7 minutes that Steph sat that ruined them. And then by that point, you're demoralized, and it seemed like they came out that way in the third quarter, and the Celtics just trounced them from there. So it really is weird. And some of the stuff they've said with Draymond and Steph saying
don't wait for the white flag. Yeah.
That seems to me like, why would you even try? Yeah. Right? Like, you never hear stars who still have something left in the tank say, don't trade the young guys for me. Usually it's the other way around, where they're campaigning for trades to bolster the roster. That sounded to me like they don't think there's any fix right now for this group, that they don't really think there's any hope or any trade out there that can take them back to championship caliber.
On the other side, those Celtics laid a smackdown. Like, they absolutely destroyed them. And I thought this was a really good bounce back game, losing to Atlanta, going 8-8 in that stretch, which is weird to call 8-8 a slump. But when you're a championship level team and you have expectations of competing and dominating every single night, it is a slump. What is the, vibe of the team in the locker room after this win, knowing they just dominated?
Yeah, I think the last month, it's just 8-8, but it's been just inconsistency.
Yeah.
And because last year was so smooth, this is the first time this group with Porzingis, with Drew Holiday, has experienced any type of rut.
Yeah.
And so it's just different. And to see that group struggle, to see the starting lineup be as bad as it has been over the last month, to see them just be outscored or close to it with Kristaps Porzingis on the court, which is very strange. Just been a weird month. The end of game stuff against Atlanta, even the game they won against the Pelicans, they threw a ball out of bounds, just for no reason. They had a 5-second violation. They've missed clutch free throws. It's like everything has gone wrong. So
do you think
it's been a very weird stretch, but today obviously was just a pretty complete win. Their defense was there in the first half when the offense wasn't quite rolling, and then once the offense kind of came around, they ran away with it. I
was just going to ask, do you think they like the fact that they're in this rut? I feel like Joe Mazzulla, the way that he talks, it's like, hey, this is what we asked for.
S is fully on board with the Mazzulla propaganda. It's just,
absolutely.
They're
Quote
in
machine,
the mud. They
love
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure Joe loves it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a part of him that's like, you know what, we can really benefit from this.
Mm-hmm.
And we can benefit from things being hard. We can benefit from going through, like, they've talked a lot lately about how the NBA has adjusted to them and how teams are guarding them differently. And especially with Porzingis back, I think the coverages against them have been different. They've been shifting, and they're sort of trying to figure all of that out. So maybe they come out of this better, but I think the bigger point is like they're probably just a little like low energy right now. They won a championship, and not as Steve Kerr pointed out today, it's not only did they win a championship, most of the guys on this team spent 7 or 8 years building toward that championship.
Right. Yeah.
And so you put so much time, so much energy into winning that, and then you got to come back, and it's like, where is the motivation? And
do it again.
And so I think to some extent, they dominated the first couple months of the season, and they got to December to January, and it was a little tough reincorporating Kristaps Porzingis because he plays very different. But I think also it's just kind of the motivation is tougher to find than it was last year now that they have that championship.
It's been tough because Derek White and Drew Holiday just been banged up. I think like consistency has been tough for them to find. But on the offensive end, they've not shot the ball well. And some of this is, they get the shots up, right? And it's a lot of average, okay looks, not even good looks. And I wonder if, they're a fastball team. They want to only throw fastballs at you. They're going to get 55 to 63s, and they're going to try to play, high level defense. Well, if the shot's not falling, like at some point, don't they need to have a curveball that's not just, hey, the shooting is going to regress back and we're going to win these games. I mean, it's just, this isn't even a thing where they shoot too many threes, because I don't think that's true. But when they're not making shots consistently, Jay, like, don't they need a curveball?
So you can say that, but then you can also look at during this 9-8 stretch, they've shot something like 34% from the arc, which is very rare and will probably never happen again. And they have like the 4th ranked offense or 3rd ranked offense during that time. And part of that is because they do have such a high 3-point volume. And part of that is because the math suggests, like, if good shooters get up that many shots, it's going to be really tough to keep that offense down. And that's part of the reason why they've been so efficient at the rim, is because you have to worry about everyone on their roster firing away. And so I think, yes, you do have to have other things to go to. And I think Porzingis coming back, getting him in the post. Jaylen Brown has developed as a post player. Jason Tatum in ISO has been more efficient than anyone else so far this season. There are other ways they can score. But yeah, like, if you do shoot low 30s for a month in the playoffs, then maybe you don't survive that. But I don't think they're the only team that would be the case for. I think pretty much any team, if you go through a cold shooting stretch, will have real difficulties. So it's interesting because, if their 3-point percentages were just normal during this streak, how different would it be? How many more games would they have won?
Right. Yeah.
And so you can point to shot luck, but also at the same time, it's like, I think the process going into those looks hasn't been quite the same as it was earlier this season. The thing that Joe Mazzulla has pointed out a couple of times is, like, they're also not getting up as many threes as they did earlier this season. It was like they were averaging 52 threes attempted per game for a while, which is insane. And over the last month or so, it's been down to about 45. So I think he would be okay with them getting up more. And I think it's part of the clunkier process that they've had, that they haven't gotten those up. And also bringing Porzingis back, obviously he's going to take more twos. He's going to take more post-ups. So it's been a process for them figuring it out the last month or so, especially with that starting lineup. The struggles they had with that group for a while was really startling.
Well, they bounced back tonight, obviously, that starting group. But overall, like, still hovering at nearly like a 0 on the net rating side. And you have them with Horford, they're like a +20 so far this season. Is that a defensive slippage? Because I feel like over the last month or so, trying to incorporate Porzingis, you obviously have to play a specific style of defense with KP out there. Is it more the defense and maybe even defending the 3 versus getting the shots up on the offensive end? Or is it? Yeah. What do you think it is?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Obviously, like, when Porzingis was out the first 2 months of the season, they were actually one of the best teams at preventing 3-point attempts by the other team.
Right.
And so that was the style that they used. Whereas last year with Porzingis, they sort of played like the Bucks did with Brook Lopez and Giannis under Budenholzer, where they were like, you can fire away. We'll leave your best shooters. We'll protect the rim. We'll kind of have our defense start from the inside and then work out. And with Porzingis back, they've kind of gone back to that previous style where they're allowing a lot more 3-point attempts. And right now, teams have been gashing them. The last month, teams have been gashing them from behind the arc. I think to some extent, like every team has shot like the Cavaliers against. It was something like when Porzingis, I looked at this a couple games ago, so it's probably not exactly the case anymore, especially after what the Warriors just did. Right. But for a 10-game stretch, when Porzingis was on the court, the Celtics opponents were shooting 43.5% from the 3-point arc and getting up like 44 3-point attempts per 48 minutes.
Damn.
So it's like every team was shooting like the Cavaliers against them, both with volume and percentage. And it's like, it's going to be tough to survive that one. Also, I don't think other teams will sustain that. But I think, part of it is playing a new style. Part of it is, like I said, probably a low energy stretch and you let guys get too comfortable. But they definitely have to adjust to kind of a new style. And I think at the end of the day, it will help them out that they can kind of toggle back and forth between a team that shuts off the arc and a team that allows bad shooters to shoot open ones from above the break. But right now they're just sort of figuring it all out.
Have you seen enough from Cleveland that you feel like Cleveland is better than Boston, or you still hold Boston in that pole position in the East?
So Cleveland has obviously been the best team in the regular season. That's not even a discussion. They've played at a historic pace. The one thing I think about as I project forward to the playoffs is like the Celtics don't really have any weak link on either end in their rotation. There's no one you can really hunt that you'd be comfortable hunting. There's no one you can leave at the 3-point arc that you'd be comfortable leaving. And I just feel like Cleveland has some of that. Like they're vulnerable in different places. What does Darius Garland do if Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are hunting him relentlessly? What does, Sam Merrill do? What does, what does George Niang do? Guys that are important to their second unit. Ty Jerome, like they've been really good. They've been incredible. That second unit has just blitzed teams all year. But in the playoffs, I do wonder if they have just too many weak links to survive another great team. Yeah. That said, they're absolutely good enough to beat the Celtics. They've been a well-oiled machine all year. The Celtics would have to play a great series against them. I would love to see it. But yeah, Cleveland's been unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for today's show, folks. Thank you guys for tuning in. Go and read Jay's coverage over at The Athletic. For Jay King and Es Baraheni, I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the NBA Daily. Thanks for waking up with us.